New Brookings Institute study based on FBI crime statistics looked into the racial disparity of drug sales. So first, let's take a look at their findings in chart form. For everybody listening to the live show right now and you can't see it, what this chart shows is the change in number of arrests of black Americans in the United States between 2011 and 1980 by the category of the crime. So, in other words, that means, quote, arrests of African Americans for violent and property crimes have gone down since 1980, but drug-related arrests have skyrocketed. Black Americans are 3.6 times more likely to be arrested for selling drugs and 2.5 times more likely to be arrested for possessing them. So to boil that down as simple as possible, that means that African Americans are committing less actual crime, property crime, violent crime, okay, and the number of arrests for nonviolent crime or drug-related crimes, those are going up. So that's bad enough as is, but here's the kicker. Quote, whites were about 45% more likely than blacks to sell drugs in 1980. This was consistent with a 1989 survey of youth in Boston as well, and a 2012 national survey on drug use and health shows that 6.6% of white adolescents and young adults aged 12 to 25 sold drugs, compared to just 5% of blacks. So that's a 32% difference. So white people sell drugs at a 32% rate higher than black people do. So, in other words, what this shows is that blacks are less likely to sell drugs and much more likely to be arrested for it. Whoa. It's gone to the point where it's a rational assumption to say, whatever the issue is, whatever the topic is at hand, just assume there's an anti-black racial disparity and there's some sort of systemic racism involved in whatever we're talking about. Because, and to be clear, we're not talking about just in terms of raw numbers. Like, in terms of raw numbers, you have white people selling drugs at a higher rate than black people. It's not just in terms of raw numbers, because, of course, the white population is much bigger than the black population. So if it's just in terms of raw numbers, a lot of people would say, yeah, so what? It's raw numbers. We're talking as a percentage, too. We're talking as a percentage, white people are drug dealers more than black people are. But black people get arrested more for being fucking drug dealers. There's no other explanation for this other than racism. Other than the fact that police officers police black communities and minority communities much more than they do white communities. Now, look, I have my own stories about this. I've witnessed this firsthand. I grew up in New Rochelle, New York, and it's a very multicultural environment, multi-religious environment, and the city is basically split up in the sense that there's the North End and the South End. The North End is viewed as more affluent, more white, and then the South End is viewed as more minority and more middle class to lower income. And going to public school my whole life and being around all different types of people, I was friends with everybody. So there are times I would go to parties on the North End when I'm in high school, or I'd go to parties on the South End. And without failure, every time you went to a party on the North End in some suburban area, police officers would never drive by. You could literally smoke weed in the front lawn and do keg stands. And there was one of my buddies has a neighbor who's a judge. They would see that we're drinking in the front lawn, like 18-year-old kids. And they'd say, okay, whatever, who cares? Okay. Whenever you're on the South End, you don't even need to make a peep. You just go on the stoop to smoke some weed. Fucking sirens, people pull up, people are getting arrested immediately. Because the cops only patrol the South End. They don't patrol the North End. And then, of course, racists look at this situation and they go, see, more black people got arrested in New Rochelle. It just means that the black people are inherently more violent. Or it means that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and since the cops are only looking in the South End, they only see crime in the South End. Now, what's my answer? Is my answer to, hey, go to the North End and arrest those kids too? No, my answer is stop arresting people for smoking weed and not bothering anybody. Nonviolent crimes are not crimes. So, when you read something like this, you get that sinking feeling of the only way this is going to change is if we make it change. Is if we say, we're going to end the drug war, we're at least going to decriminalize drugs. I would like to go a step further and legalize drugs, and I would like to go a step further and release everybody from jail that's in there for a nonviolent drug offense. Okay? And then when you have police officers who, number one, are more objective in how they apply the law, so they actually do look in everywhere and they don't only patrol black communities and minority communities. When you have cops who do that, and you also have cops that are only looking to stop assault and domestic violence and rape and all these actual crimes, then I think everybody will agree in the United States, oh, what a lovely institution the police officers are. And also, by the way, if they wear cameras, because when they're forced to wear cameras, the statistics show there's much less abuse of authority. So if you do these minor reforms, then we wouldn't have studies like this that say, yeah, America is just flat out racist.